Before we begin tonight's story, I want to tell you something. You're about to experience what it feels like to wake up ill in a world with no antibiotics, no doctors, no certainty of recovery. Just your body, your fear, and the quiet waiting. If you find comfort in these slow, thoughtful journeys through history, stories that help you learn while you rest, then feel free to like this video and subscribe. Only if it genuinely helps you sleep or learn. And if you'd like, leave a comment telling me where you're listening from and what time it is there right now. Some of you are listening in the deep hours of night, others at dawn or during a midday rest. It's always fascinating to see where these quiet stories find their home. Now settle in, let the day fall away, and let's step back into a time when illness arrived without warning, and survival began not with medicine, but with patience. Let's begin. You wake before the sun, not because the rooster has cried, but because something inside your body feels wrong. The room is still, thick with the smell of ash and old wood, and your blanket is damp where you have sweated through the night. Your throat burns, your head feels strangely light, and when you try to swallow, there is a quiet fear that rises before you can stop it. You do not know the word for what this is. You only know that yesterday you were able to grind grain and fetch water, and today, even lifting your arm feels heavy. In this world, illness does not arrive with explanations. It arrives like a shadow, slow and silent, settling into your bones while you lie there listening to your own breath, wondering whether this feeling will pass by morning or stay long enough to change everything. You stare into the darkness and try to remember if you angered God, or ate something wrong, or walked too long in the cold air. Your thoughts circle gently, not frantic yet, but cautious, as if your body itself is whispering that you must pay attention now. As the hours stretch on, the house begins to stir, but you stay still, measuring yourself in small ways. Can you sit up without dizziness? Can you swallow without pain? You press your palm to your chest, then to your forehead, the way your mother once did, and you try to decide whether this is something to ignore or something to fear. There is no mirror to examine your face, no clock to count your fever, no name for what you feel growing inside you. Only memory guides you. You remember neighbors who complained of aches and were well again in days, and others who took to their beds and never returned. It is quiet, uncertain, and full of waiting. You listen for sounds outside, for footsteps or voices, but what you are really listening for is reassurance from your own body. When none comes, a gentle unease settles in, the kind that makes you move more slowly and speak less, conserving strength without fully understanding why. By mid-morning, the light finds its way through the cracks in the wall, and you finally sit up, dizzy but determined. There is work to be done, always work, and sickness does not excuse you easily. Yet even as you stand, you know something has shifted. In a world without medicine, the body itself becomes a fragile thing, something you must negotiate with rather than command. You sip water carefully, tasting the wood of the cup, and each swallow feels like a small test. You think of the women before you, how they must have stood in this same place, feeling this same uncertainty, wondering whether to push through or surrender to rest. Rest is dangerous too, because lying down too long invites worry from others, and worry spreads quickly. You tell yourself to move gently, to act normal, to wait. Illness here is not a crisis yet. It is a question, unanswered, hanging quietly in the air as the day continues around you. As the hours pass, fatigue settles deeper and your thoughts begin to slow. You realize that being sick is not only about pain, but about not knowing. You cannot measure how bad this is, or how long it will last, or whether it will take you somewhere you cannot return from. There is no promise of recovery, only hope shaped by experience and faith. You remember stories told softly at night of people who survived strange fevers and those who did not. These memories are not meant to frighten you, but they do, gently. You move through the day more quietly now, speaking less, listening more. Every sensation becomes important. Every ache feels like a message you are trying to understand. In this world, the body speaks first, and answers come later, if they come at all. You begin to accept that tonight you may lie down with the same questions you woke with, and that acceptance itself is part of surviving. When evening finally arrives, you return to your bed with careful movements, as if sudden motion might break something fragile inside you. The room darkens again, and you pull the blanket close, breathing slowly, counting nothing but your own inhales and exhales. Illness, you now understand, is not always loud. Sometimes it is simply this moment, lying still, feeling uncertain, hoping quietly. You are not thinking of cures or doctors or remedies yet. You are only thinking of getting through the night, and in this time, long before modern medicine, that is often where survival begins, not with healing, but with endurance, patience, and the small human act of waiting. Illness, in your world, is not something with a single cause or a clear path. It is not named, labeled, or separated neatly from everyday life. When sickness comes, it is understood through feeling, memory, and belief rather than diagnosis. You and those around you speak of balance more than disease. Too much cold in the body, too much heat, too much sorrow, too little food, too much labor. Everything is connected, and so illness feels personal, almost moral, as if the body is responding to how you have lived. You do not ask, "What is this illness?" You ask instead, "What has gone out of order?" The body is seen as part of the wider world, affected by seasons, moods, and unseen forces. This understanding does not always bring fear. Sometimes it brings comfort, because if illness has meaning, then perhaps it also has reason, and reason feels easier to live with than randomness. You learn early that sickness is not rare or remarkable. People live with it constantly, in small aches and lingering pains that never fully disappear. A cough might last months, a wound might never quite heal. Fever is common enough that it does not always cause alarm at first. Only when weakness deepens, when appetite fades, or when sleep becomes restless, do others begin to watch more closely. There is no clear line between being unwell and being dangerously ill. Everything exists on a slow slope, and you move along it without knowing where it ends. This uncertainty shapes how you think. You become attentive to small signs, to changes in breath, skin, and strength. Illness teaches patience, because rushing does nothing. It teaches humility, because the body does not obey commands. You accept that recovery, if it comes, will do so in its own time. Many believe illness is sent, not accidental. Some see it as a test, others as punishment, others as a message meant to be understood rather than cured. This belief does not always make sickness heavier. For some, it offers structure to. If illness has purpose, then prayer, repentance, or ritual might soften its hold. Even those who speak of balance and natural causes often blend these ideas with faith. The boundaries between body and spirit are thin. You may be told to rest, to fast, to pray, or to avoid certain foods, not because these are proven cures, but because they feel right within this shared understanding of the world. These explanations are not debated the way modern ideas are. They are inherited, accepted, and lived with quietly, passed from one generation to the next like household knowledge. Fear still exists, but it is different from modern fear. You are not afraid of specific diseases because you do not know them. You are afraid of outcomes. You fear not waking, not recovering, becoming a burden, or being remembered as fragile. Illness threatens your place in the rhythm of daily life. It interrupts work, care, and contribution. That interruption carries weight. To be sick is not only to feel pain, but to step out of usefulness, even temporarily. This is why many hide their symptoms for as long as they can, not out of denial, but out of necessity. Survival depends on participation, and illness makes participation uncertain. You learn to endure quietly, hoping the body will right itself before anyone needs to worry. Without medicine, knowledge lives in stories rather than books. You remember who survived and who did not, and those memories shape how you respond. If someone lived through a fever by resting and drinking warm broth, that becomes guidance. If another worsened after ignoring weakness, that becomes a warning. There is no guarantee, only patterns observed and remembered. These patterns become your map. They are imperfect, but they are all you have. Illness then is not faced alone, even when you lie quietly. It is surrounded by the collective memory of your community. By whispered advice and careful watching, you are held by experience rather than certainty. As night comes again, you understand that being sick before medicine means living with questions rather than answers. It means trusting the slow intelligence of the body and the care of those around you. There is fear here, yes, but also acceptance. You do not expect control. You expect endurance, and in that expectation you find a strange illness becomes something to move through, one quiet hour at a time, guided by belief, memory, and the steady hope that balance, somehow, will return. When illness settles into your body and refuses to leave quickly, attention turns inward, toward the home and the small, familiar acts that have always carried people through uncertain days. There is no sudden rush for a doctor, no urgent search for answers beyond the household walls. Healing, as you understand it, begins where you already are. The fire is kept low and steady, water is warmed, and familiar herbs are gathered from bundles hanging in the corner or from memory alone. You may not know precisely what each plant does, but you know what it has always been used for. Leaves for fevers, roots for pain, flowers for sleep. This knowledge is quiet and practical, learned by watching rather than studying, passed down in murmured instructions while hands remain busy. The act of preparing these remedies is as important as the remedy itself. It gives shape to fear and turns waiting into something gentle and purposeful. You sit or lie nearby while someone crushes herbs with slow, practiced movements, releasing scents that feel comforting simply because they are known. Steam rises from a pot, carrying warmth into the room, and for a moment the illness feels less heavy. These remedies do not promise miracles. They promise care. Warm teas soothe the throat, poultices cool the skin, and clean cloths are laid carefully across aching places. Each action says the same thing in different ways. You are not being ignored. In a world without cures, attention itself becomes medicine. The body may still ache, but the mind finds rest in routine. You drink slowly, swallow carefully, and allow yourself to be still. There is no pressure to recover quickly, only to endure gently. Women are often at the center of this care, not because they are formally trained, but because they are observant. They notice patterns others overlook. They remember which child slept better after a certain tea, which fever broke after days of rest rather than movement. Kitchens become places of healing as much as nourishment. Illness is folded into daily life rather than separated from it. While bread bakes and water warms, remedies are prepared alongside meals. Healing does not feel dramatic. It feels domestic, ordinary. This familiarity is soothing. It reminds you that sickness has always existed, and so has the quiet knowledge of how to live alongside it. Hope enters slowly here, not as excitement, but as steadiness. Each sip of warm liquid, each moment of rest, carries a small belief that the body knows how to find its way back. There is no expectation of immediate change. Improvement, a little more strength in the hands, a little less heat in the skin, a night of deeper sleep. These signs are noticed and held carefully, not celebrated loudly. You learn to read your body the way others read weather, watching for shifts rather than certainties. Even setbacks are met calmly. If pain returns, you adjust. If fatigue deepens, you There is no failure in this, only listening. Sometimes remedies include rituals that blur the line between healing and belief. A whispered phrase spoken while tying a cloth, a charm placed nearby, a habit repeated because it has always been done. These actions may not change the illness itself, but they change how it is endured. They bring rhythm to long days and anchor the mind when the body feels unreliable. You do not question these practices. You accept them as part of care, as part of the way people have always faced what they cannot fully understand. In this acceptance, anxiety softens. The illness becomes something you move through with support rather than something you face alone. As days pass, you begin to sense that survival here is rarely about finding the right cure. It is about patience, consistency, and kindness toward the body. Home remedies are not powerful because they conquer illness, but because they allow space for recovery if recovery is possible. They offer comfort when comfort is needed most. And even if the body does not heal fully, the care itself matters. It leaves behind the memory of being tended to, of being valued even in weakness. In a world before modern medicine, that memory is part of what sustains you. It reminds you that healing is not always about becoming well again, but about being carried gently through whatever comes next. When the illness lingers beyond what home care can soothe, attention slowly turns beyond the household, toward people whose presence alone carries reassurance. These are not doctors in the way we understand them now. They are midwives, healers, and wise women, known less for credentials and more for memory, patience, and trust earned over many years. You do not summon them lightly. Their arrival signals that what you are facing matters, that it deserves careful watching. When one of them enters your space, she does so without urgency, moving calmly, observing before speaking. She looks at your face, your posture, the way you breathe. She listens not only to your words, but to the pauses between them. Her knowledge lives in experience, in what she has seen survive and what she has seen fail. There is comfort in that quiet confidence, even when certainty is impossible. These women often know your life as well as your body. They remember your childhood illnesses, the sicknesses that passed through the village, the births, the losses, the seasons when many grew weak at once. This broader understanding matters. Illness is not treated as an isolated event, but as part of a larger story that includes weather, food, grief, and exhaustion. When a healer speaks, she does so gently, offering suggestions rather than commands. More rest, less labor, certain foods avoided, others encouraged. Nothing sounds dramatic. Everything sounds careful. Her presence slows the room, and in that slowing, fear loosens its grip. You feel seen, not examined. That distinction matters deeply when the body feels fragile. Midwives especially hold a unique place in this world of care. Their work with birth makes them familiar with pain, endurance, and the thin line between life and death. That familiarity breeds steadiness rather than fear. When they tend to illness, they bring that same calm acceptance. They understand that bodies are resilient, but also unpredictable. They have watched people recover against expectation and others fade despite every effort. This does not make them cold. It makes them honest. They do not promise healing. They promise attention. They stay longer than others might, checking quietly, adjusting care, reminding those around you to be patient. Their presence tells you that whatever happens, it will not happen unseen. Not everyone trusts these healers equally. Some whisper suspicions, especially when outcomes are poor. The same woman who is praised when someone recovers may be blamed when someone does not. You are aware of this even as you rely on her. It adds a quiet tension to care, a sense that healing is not only physical but social. Still, when you are sick, trust often outweighs fear. You accept help because isolation feels worse than uncertainty. The healer becomes a bridge between the known and the unknown, offering structure where there is none. Even her rituals, her habits, her repeated phrases bring comfort through familiarity. What matters most is not whether these women cure illness, but how they shape the experience of being ill. They remind you that weakness does not remove your worth. They speak to you as a person, not a problem to solve. They teach others how to care without panic, how to wait without despair. In their presence, illness feels less like abandonment and more like a shared responsibility. You are still afraid, but you are not alone in that fear. And in a world without modern medicine, that shared burden becomes a powerful form of survival. As illness stretches on, especially when the body does not respond to rest or remedies, attention often turns upward, inward, and beyond what hands can touch. In your world, faith is not separate from daily life, and it does not suddenly appear only when things go wrong, but sickness sharpens it. When pain lingers and strength fades, prayer becomes a way to speak into the silence. You whisper familiar words not because you are certain they will heal you, but because they are known, memorized, steady. Candles are lit, not dramatically but carefully, their small flames watched in the dim room as if they might carry your hope somewhere unseen. Faith gives illness a place to rest when answers run out. It offers meaning when cause and effect no longer feel clear. You are taught, gently or firmly, that sickness may be a message. Perhaps it is a test of patience, a reminder of humility, or a call to slow down in a life that rarely allows it. These ideas do not always feel comforting, but they give structure to fear. To believe illness has purpose is sometimes easier than believing it is random. You examine your recent days quietly. Did you work too hard? Did you neglect prayer? Did you carry unspoken anger or grief? This reflection is not always filled with guilt. Often it is calm, even tender. It gives the mind something to hold on to while the body waits. In a world where medicine cannot explain or fix everything, meaning becomes its own form of relief. Religious rituals weave themselves naturally into care. Someone may place a symbol near your bed, or murmur blessings while adjusting a blanket. Saints are invoked for specific ailments, their stories remembered and retold softly. They are slow, repetitive, and deeply familiar. They create rhythm in days that might otherwise blur together. Even when fear is present, it is softened by routine. You are not alone in believing this might help. Everyone around you shares this language of faith, and that shared belief strengthens it. When others pray for you, it feels like being held in a way that does not require touch. Fear still lives here, often quietly. Faith does not erase it. You may pray for healing while also preparing yourself for the possibility that healing will not come. This dual awareness does not feel contradictory, it feels honest. Many have walked this path before you. You remember funerals that followed long illnesses. And you also remember recoveries that felt miraculous. Both are part of the same story. Faith helps you accept that outcomes are not fully within human control. That acceptance does not mean surrendering hope. It means releasing the need to understand everything. For some, faith offers comfort through surrender. You place your body, your breath, your future into hands you believe are wiser than your own. This does not remove pain, but it can ease resistance to it. Nights feel less frightening when you believe you are being watched over, even if you cannot feel it. Sleep comes more easily when worry is spoken aloud, even if only in a whisper. In this way, prayer becomes a form of rest. It slows the mind, steadies the breath, and allows the body to soften even while illness remains. In the quiet that follows prayer, you are left with yourself again, but changed slightly. Fear has been acknowledged rather than ignored. Hope has been expressed without demand. Illness still lives in your body, but it no longer fills every corner of your thoughts. Faith has made room around it. In a time before modern medicine, it allows endurance without panic, waiting without despair. Whether or not healing comes, faith offers a way to remain human within uncertainty, to feel connected rather than abandoned. And sometimes that connection is enough to carry you through another night. For some, illness does not arrive, linger, and then quietly depart. Instead, it settles in and becomes part of the shape of everyday life. You wake each morning knowing that a certain ache will be there before your feet touch the floor, that a stiffness will follow you through the day like a shadow. There is no expectation of being fully well again, only of being well enough. In your world, this kind of lasting pain is common. Joints swell and never quite return to ease. Old fevers leave weakness behind. Injuries heal imperfect. You learn early that the body remembers everything it has endured. There is no language for chronic illness, but there is familiarity with it. You recognize it in the slow movements of others, in the way some people pause before standing, or breathe carefully after simple work. Pain becomes something quietly shared, rarely discussed in detail, but widely understood. Living with long-term illness requires adjustment rather than resistance. You learn how to pace yourself without naming it as such. Tasks are broken into smaller parts. Rest is taken where it can be found, even if only for a moment. You discover which movements worsen the pain and which soothe it slightly. This knowledge is deeply personal, earned through trial rather than instruction. There is no sense of fighting the body into submission. Instead, you listen, adapt, and continue. Some days are better than others, and you accept this without surprise. Expectation softens disappointment. You do not wake hoping to feel, you wake hoping to feel capable. Pain also reshapes identity. You may no longer do the work you once did, or you may do it more slowly, with help. This can feel like loss, especially in a world where usefulness is closely tied to survival. Yet communities often adapt in quiet ways. Someone else takes on heavier labor. You contribute where you can, perhaps in tasks that require patience rather than strength. Illness does not always remove your place. Sometimes it changes it. There is dignity in this adjustment, though it is rarely spoken of as such. You learn that worth is not entirely erased by weakness, even if it feels threatened at times. Emotionally, long illness brings its own kind of fatigue. Pain that does not leave teaches endurance, but it also tests it. There are moments of frustration, of grief for the body you once trusted. These feelings are rarely expressed openly. Instead, they are folded inward. You find comfort in routine, in predictable rhythms that anchor the day. Familiar prayers, repeated tasks, and known faces help steady the mind when the body feels unreliable. Over time, you grow accustomed to this version of yourself, not resigned, but adapted. You stop measuring life by what you have lost and begin measuring it by what remains. Others around you often treat your illness with a mix of acceptance and distance. Because it is ongoing, it no longer causes alarm. This can feel isolating at times, but it also brings a strange freedom. You are not watched constantly, not pitied endlessly. You are simply known as someone who moves carefully, who rests often, who endures. This quiet recognition allows you to exist without explanation. In a world without cures, permanence is not shocking. It is expected. Many live this way, carrying pain alongside daily life, not because they choose to, but because there is no alternative. Despite this, moments of comfort still exist. A day with less pain, a night of deeper sleep, a conversation that distracts you from your body entirely. These moments are cherished not because they promise change, but because they offer relief. You learn to notice them, to hold them gently. Living with lasting illness teaches you to value small mercies, to find peace not in the absence of pain, but in its quiet management. And in that steady acceptance, there is resilience. Not the loud kind, but the enduring kind, that allows life to continue even when the body never fully heals. When illness stretches beyond days and begins to shape weeks, survival no longer feels like something you manage alone. Even if you try to keep it contained within your own body, Sickness has a way of spilling outward, touching the rhythm of the household and the wider community around you. Someone notices that your steps have slowed, but your hands tremble slightly when lifting simple things, that you sit more often than you once did. These observations are not announced. They are absorbed quietly, folded into how others move around you. Care begins long before anyone speaks of it. It begins in attention. In your world, care is rarely dramatic. No one gathers around your bed to discuss your condition at length. Instead, life subtly rearranges itself. Tasks you once handled are taken up by others without explanation. Food appears beside you without being offered. A stool is placed near the fire so you do not have to stand as long. These gestures are not framed as favors. They are understood as part of living together. Everyone knows that strength shifts from person to person over time, and that no one remains capable forever. Illness simply accelerates what is already known, that survival depends on shared effort. At first, accepting this care feels uncomfortable. You are aware of how much you once contributed, how much you still wish to do. There is a quiet grief in watching others perform tasks that used to belong to you. The body, when ill, spends much of its energy simply continuing. To be spared even small efforts matters more than pride allows you to say. Over time, you learn that receiving care is not a failure of strength, but an extension of it. It allows endurance to continue when independence alone would break you. Community care is practical, grounded in necessity rather than emotion. But that practicality carries deep reassurance. No one sits beside you offering constant sympathy. Instead, they make sure your place in the household remains intact. Conversations continue near you rather than away from you. Children are encouraged to sit quietly nearby. News is shared, stories repeated. These small acts anchor you to the ongoing life around you. Illness may slow your body, but it does not remove you from the world. You are still present, MyNewPeas, still included, still part of the daily flow. There is also an unspoken awareness that illness does not always end in recovery. This knowledge shapes care in subtle ways. People linger a little, instructions are given more carefully, skills are shared deliberately, as if ensuring nothing is lost if you cannot continue as before. This is not done with fear or urgency. It is done with calm respect for uncertainty. In a world without guarantees, preparedness becomes an act of compassion, and yet hope remains woven into these preparations. Care is offered not as farewell, but as support, moment by moment, without demanding a particular ending. As days pass, you begin to understand that illness has altered your relationship with others in ways both difficult and meaningful. You are more dependent, yes, but you are also more connected. Care flows toward you, and in time you learn to offer what you can in return: advice, listening, presence. Even when the body is weak, the self still has value. This realization settles slowly, but once it does, it eases the fear of being a burden. You are not being carried uselessly. You are being held within a system that expects, someday, to hold everyone. This shared endurance changes how illness feels. Pain remains, fatigue remains, uncertainty remains. But they are no longer faced in isolation. The body may weaken, but the web around you strengthens. Survival becomes something collective, something built from repeated small acts rather than singular cures. You begin to sense that this is how people have always endured sickness, not by conquering it, but by surrounding it with care until it loosens its hold, or until life simply moves forward in a different shape. As night approaches, the presence of others softens, the day's work settles, and the household grows quieter. Someone ensures you are warm enough, someone else adjusts the fire. These actions are done without discussion, without drawing attention. And as you prepare once again for sleep, you carry with you the knowledge that if the night is difficult, someone will notice in the morning. That knowledge alone changes how rest feels. You are not lying down, you are lying down within a network of memory, habit, and shared responsibility. This awareness follows you into the darkness. It steadies the mind as the body grows tired. You begin to understand that even if illness takes more from you, it will not take everything. Care has already filled the spaces where strength once lived, and with that understanding, the fear that once followed you into bed softens, making room for something quieter, acceptance, and eventually, rest. As night settles in again, it does so gently, without ceremony, the way it always has. You prepare for sleep slowly now, more deliberately than before, aware of each movement your body makes. You arrange the blanket so it does not press where pain lingers, and you ease yourself down as if negotiating with the weight of your own limbs. The room grows quiet in layers, sounds fading one by one until only the faintest traces of the outside world remain. In this stillness, the day loosens its grip on you. Whatever strength you had was used. Whatever worry you carried has grown tired. Sleep is not something you fall into quickly. It is something you approach carefully, almost reverently, because you know how much rests within it. There is an understanding, rarely spoken aloud, that sleep is never guaranteed to return you unchanged. You have seen it before. Someone lies down exhausted, expecting morning, and the morning comes without them. This knowledge does not panic you. It simply exists. Like the awareness of weather or time, it makes each night feel slightly heavier, but also more meaningful. You think of small things as you lie there. The warmth of the fire earlier, the sound of familiar voices, the comfort of being tended to. These memories surface quietly, not as regret, but as grounding. They remind you that even if illness has taken much from you, it has not taken everything. Life has still passed through your hands, even if only briefly. Breathing becomes the focus, slow and measured, because it is one thing illness has not taken yet. Each breath feels deliberate, as if you are counting them without numbers. In and out, gentle, even. The body, for all its weakness, still knows how to do this on its own. That knowledge brings a quiet reassurance. You are not holding yourself together by will alone. Something deeper is working, something older than fear. In a world without medicine, this trust in the body's own rhythm becomes essential. You cannot watch it constantly. Eventually, you must let it work. Sleep, when it comes, is not always deep. Sometimes it is light and broken, filled with brief waking moments where you check yourself instinctively. Am I warmer or cooler? Does the pain feel sharper or duller? These checks happen without panic, almost automatically, and then you allow yourself to drift again. Other nights, sleep comes heavier, pulling you under before thoughts can follow. Those nights feel like mercy. You do not analyze them. You accept them gratefully. To rest without awareness, even for a short while, is a gift when illness makes every sensation louder. In these hours of darkness, time stretches differently. You are resting within the present. The idea of recovery exists, but it no longer dominates your thoughts. You have learned, through long days and longer nights, that survival does not always look like improvement. Sometimes it looks like persistence, like allowing one more night to pass, one more dawn to arrive. You do not demand answers from your body anymore. You simply ask it to stay with you a little longer. There is also comfort in knowing how many others have rested this way before you. Across generations, across places, people have laid down with uncertainty beside them, trusting sleep to carry them through what waking could not. You are part of that quiet lineage. Illness has never stopped humanity from resting, loving, hoping, or dreaming. Even in weakness, people have continued. That continuity softens fear. It reminds you that your experience is not isolated, even if it feels solitary in the dark. As your body grows heavier and thoughts blur at the edges, a sense of release begins to form. You have done what you could today. You accepted care. You rested when possible. You endured discomfort without fighting it. endlessly. There is nothing more required of you now. Sleep is no longer something it is something you allow. The house holds you. The night surrounds you. And for a while, you are carried rather than carrying yourself. Whether morning comes gently or not at all is no longer something you wrestle with. That question belongs to the future, and you are learning to stay here at this moment, in this breath, in this quiet. Illness may remain, but it does not define that this hour belongs to rest. And as sleep finally takes you, slowly and without resistance, there is a deep human peace in knowing that for now, simply being here, breathing, resting, existing is enough. In the next part of this story, we'll explore what happened when people began to fight back against illness, even without knowing what caused it. How they turned to plants, to rituals, to each other. How they survived, not through science, but through observation, tradition, and hope. And so you rest, not because you know what tomorrow brings, but because rest itself is an act of trust, an act of hope, an act as old as humanity itself. This is where our journey ends tonight, in the quiet, in the darkness, in the space between one breath and the next, where countless people throughout history have found themselves uncertain yet enduring. We've walked together through what it meant to be ill before medicine could promise answers, before doctors could name what was wrong, before pills could silence pain or science could map the invisible threats living inside us. We've felt the weight of not knowing, the patience of waiting, and the profound courage it took simply to lie down each night and hope for morning. If this story has given you something, whether it's perspective, comfort, or simply a gentle place to rest your mind, then I'd be grateful if you'd like the video. Not out of obligation, but only if it truly resonated with you. And if you found value in this slow, thoughtful approach to history, consider subscribing. These stories take time to craft, and your support helps me continue creating them. I'd also love to know, where are you right now as you listen to this? Are you lying in bed in the early morning hours, resting in the afternoon? Listening as the day winds down? There's something beautiful about knowing these words are reaching people across time zones, across continents, all finding their way to this same quiet moment. Leave a comment if you'd like. I read them all, and they remind me why I make these. Before you go, I want you to know something. If you're listening to this because you're struggling to sleep, or because you're dealing with illness yourself, or because the modern world feels too loud and you need somewhere gentle to land, you're not alone. Just as people thousands of years ago lay in the darkness wondering if they'd see sunrise, you too are part of that ancient, unbroken chain of human endurance. You too are surviving moment by moment, breath by breath. And that matters more than you might realize. Rest now. Let the weight of the day fall away. Let history hold you and know that whatever uncertainty you're carrying, you don't have to resolve it tonight. Tonight is simply for resting, for breathing, for being here. Thank you for spending this time with me. Thank you for listening all the way through, and thank you for trusting these quiet stories to accompany you wherever you are in your own journey. Sleep well, or rest well, or simply be well in whatever way you can manage right now. Until the next story finds you, take care of yourself. You've earned it.